Hello, my name is Joni Lara and I'm a senior at Texas Tech University. Today I'm going to talk to you about my research on discovering how human trafficking training should be integrated in a healthcare setting. Human trafficking is a global pandemic. Healthcare professionals frequently see sex victims without knowing how to recognize the signs. Furthermore, victims who seek medical attention are too traumatized to trust law enforcement or healthcare workers. The disciplines that we'll be focusing on this issue are human resource development and organizational leadership. Human trafficking is a synonymous form of modern-day slavery. This is predominant all over the globe. It can come in various forms of social inequalities, debt bondage, honor crimes, surrogate motherhood, forced organ removal, and forced labor. One of the most prevalent forms of exploitation among the victims is commercial sexual exploitation. This often goes unreported because it occurs behind closed doors. Human trafficking offers opportunities for identification and intervention in a healthcare setting. In order to optimize e-screening, healthcare professionals and frontline workers need training to screen and identify these victims to be able to respond effectively. Human trafficking is a global crime that is mainly prevalent in the state of Texas. This crime is not limited to any particular region, as victims are trafficked across city, country, and continents worldwide. This can often occur in the workplace without another employee knowing, and over the last few years, healthcare professionals have seen a rise in victims. Due to this issue's gravity, many human resource development teams and organizational leaders have revamped their training to recognize the signs. So the question remains, how can organizational leaders and HR integrate a practical approach to reduce disparities in provider training? Despite the gravity of human trafficking, healthcare professionals' training is not adequate to identify and respond to this crime. With the concentrations of organizational leadership and human resource development, they both study human behaviors and existence. They both have unique characteristics that play an integral part in the stop of this crime. Since employees and management need to be aware of the signs, these concentrations are relevant to this topic. Social learning theory explains criminal behavior as a result of associating with the people engaged in human trafficking. The theory accents specific cognitive and behavioral mechanisms when studying this behavior. When we use social learning theory, this allows us to have a background and a basic understanding of the violated victims and why this occurs. In order to identify relevant disciplines, we need to break down how organizational leadership and human resource development are centered around this training. Organizational leaders can lead a team to see the signs of trafficking. They begin a task force to collaborate with federal and state local officials. They can also begin anti-trafficking efforts with survivors of trafficking. While human resource development can set up a website with current information for frontline workers. And they can also provide trafficking education and simulation for specialties who actually interact with the victims the most. There are several models that human resource development has out there. They are the SOAR, AMP, and ADDIE models. SOAR is a model that is recommended for all healthcare professionals, social workers, providers, and frontline workers. This program seeks to build communities' capacity to identify and respond to the complex needs of individuals who have experienced trafficking. By using the SOAR approach, This will equip healthcare professionals to identify and treat victims appropriately in person or online. The AMP model is a tool to determine whether a situation fits the federal definition of human trafficking. The A is for action. This is what the trafficker does to the victim. M is the means of coercion. A person is inducted into the purpose or type of exploitation. The AMP model article explained that the components that define a human trafficking victim and what steps a healthcare professional should take to obtain the victim's trust to be able to provide a safe and comfortable place. This model also provides insight into integrating specialized screening protocols and how not to cause undue stress on the victim. The QIC allows survivors, providers, and human resource leaders to collaborate on training that equally fits all professions. May stated that training and developments focus on awareness and alternative actions towards eliminating the problem. They highly recommend the ADDIE model. This model is to analyze, design, development, implement, and evaluate how human trafficking can be analyzed and designed to determine the focus of the training. Organizational leaders in the healthcare, school, and professional organizations can set up platforms to help victims of human trafficking. One way they can do this is they can guide individuals to achieve their goals, be empathetic, and understand the needs of the business. By collaborating with other communities, healthcare professionals can be at the forefront of training and address the needs for victims, survivors, and their families. One way they can do this is to create a framework that provides a clear starting point for school consultants in their prevention efforts. There's also a simulation-based medical education curriculum that can prepare students to recognize victims and intervene on their behalf. By implementing a multi-phase educational approach to provide interventions, organizational leaders can tailor a collaborative framework to strengthen the fight against human trafficking. Training and development are critical functions when it comes to the breakdown of human trafficking. Training needs to focus on the employee's needs and responsibilities as well as the patient. Frontline workers also need this training because they deal with both kinds of abuse. As organizational leaders, they have a responsibility to coordinate more training by combining forces with other agencies. Training needs to be reintegrated so that it's tailored to address complex needs of trafficking victims. Leaders can expand tools for screening exploited victims. The challenge of identifying conflicts between disciplines for this interdisciplinary research was interesting. Human resource development and organizational leadership are often disciplines that conflict with each other as they both have a competitive management style. Both disciplines also require critical thinking skills, conflict resolution, and decision-making skills to motivate their teams and inspire their employees to be productive. The conflict between the two is nothing new, as leaders will disagree with human resources on how to resolve issues. Conflicts are typically triggered by boundary disputes and existing inequalities that arise due to leadership responsibilities and the role human resources has in the organization. Human resources typically insist staff members follow workplace policies and procedures, where organizational leaders typically display a free-spirited behavior. By focusing on the victim, each discipline can shift their perspective to provide necessary care for the trafficked victim. No simple solution exists to this wicked problem. It is impossible to definitively solve this crime despite a number of complex issues, as it's considered the fastest growing illegal trade. One barrier in training is a lack of education. Another is an unwilling to change certain protocols. Personal development is an important component of human resource development. HR has a responsibility to focus their training on the employee needs and responsibilities as well as focusing on the patient needs. These victims often suffer unique circumstances and health risks. They will need medical care, legal help, and often drug treatment services due to the complex trauma that they have endured. Communication will need to be at the forefront. Community partners also need to advocate a group of professionals to ensure that all methodologies of training are met. An effective leader in an organization must be able to welcome input from all stakeholders. It is impossible for leaders to promote collaboration when they're not willing to work with multiple agencies to develop a simulation training program that allows for the detection and investigation of sexual exploitation. Organizational leadership and HR development must make sure their employees attend courses, find ways to offer continuation credits, and keep their employees up to date with any information on human trafficking signs. Training is vital to the health and welfare of the victims, regardless of which method is used. Development and organizational leadership have a responsibility to implement training on human trafficking. They can do this through the AMP model, ADDIE model, SOAR, also offer simulation classes, and continuing education credits. While examining potential solutions on training of human trafficking, one thing is clear. The best way to protect victims is to implement prevention strategies. Both human resource development and organizational leadership have a responsibility to inform and provide training to all providers, frontline workers, and first responders. By increasing awareness and training, this will help provide a better quality of life to those who have been affected by this crime. After I have reviewed each discipline, there is no visible sign that one contributes to the conflict of human trafficking. But one thing remains clear, they both aim to solve the issue.